The Next Shelter Network presents an Appalachian Trail interview series, 2024 edition. This is a platform for hikers to share their hearts, minds, and experiences. These interviews are hosted by yours truly, Trevor Hendry, otherwise known as Bear. Now to the interview. So we are live. We are here with Holly Waggoner. I think I know I got that one right this time. And she's going to be starting sometime in March, third, fourth week of March. The cool thing is that we know nothing about each other. This is literally like the first conversation I'm having with Holly. So there's endless possibilities in this conversation. First, I just want to thank you. Thank you for your time.
Well, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I've been looking forward to it. So, with that being said, let's kind of just let's start with some of the basics here. Where are you from originally? Like, where were you born?
Originally, I was born in Houston, Texas, and I grew up around that area in a little town called Magnolia. Um, Graduated high school there, and I've always had an adventurous spirit, so I couldn't wait to leave and travel. But those plans came to a halt whenever I got pregnant at 19, and then shortly after that, I joined the Navy. So that kind of gave you a little idea of where I grew up and how I ended up leaving and traveling.
Yeah. I love how we can simplify our lives to just a few sentences or a paragraph, but
Oh, yeah, a lot happened
there's a
between that
lot
time, but it's
going on
like,
there.
yeah.
Oh my
Yep,
gosh.
so I grew up in Texas.
Okay. All right. So, did
Yeah.
you have any kind of exposure to the outdoors? What did you grow up doing as a child?
Um, Playing outside a lot. I mean, didn't have any exposure to hiking, just always being outside and, I have 3 older brothers, so I was kind of always following them around and trying to do whatever they were doing because I was the only girl and had no other choice, and, yeah, just spent a lot of time outside. Didn't really play sports or anything much until high school, but yeah.
So you mentioned you wanted to kind of expand your horizons, as a lot of people would do. Was it a small town in Texas? Was it a metro area? Because the range in Texas is very large. So
Yeah, it's huge. No, it's a pretty small town. Gosh, my graduating class was about 400. I don't know if that's big or not. I think in most areas, a graduating class of 400 is not that big.
hmm,
Now there's 4 high schools in the town that I grew up in, but at the time there was only 1. So to me, it was small. It felt small. My family didn't travel much, and I feel like I lived a pretty secluded childhood in that aspect. Just the lack of traveling, and I don't know where the desire for wanting to always travel and just see different things and experience different people and different scenery, but it was just something within me, I guess.
yeah, no, it makes
Yeah,
perfect sense. There's a lot of people
yeah.
from smaller-ish towns and want to see the world. The world's a big place, and it sounds like you were kind of able to do that in a little bit. Did you
Mhm.
mention you had your child prior to the military?
I did. Yeah, so my oldest son, I have 3 children now, but at the time, my I only had my oldest son, and we moved to California, and as a way to provide financial support and medical care for him, I joined the Navy, but also I got that deep-rooted desire for traveling and experiencing, traveling from the Navy, so
I noticed that's a big thing with people coming out on trail is you're leaving people behind, you're leaving things behind. And so
mhm.
that obviously this experience won't be new to you, given that at that time you had a child and you decided to join the Navy. Now, normally you kind of hear it kind of goes in reverse order. What was that experience like for you then, being a mother, also having to balance that and the Navy and travel, and how was that for you?
I think being a mother and a first-time mother and a new mother, leaving for the Navy at that time, it was more of a means of providing. And it was terrifying. I didn't wanna leave him, especially so young, but I knew if I didn't, then I probably never would, and I didn't know what I was gonna do. So, um, it was it was an outlet for me to be able to provide for him and get out of the situation I was in at that time.
Got you. So coming out onto the trail, is it just your I'm assuming are your children older now? Like what are they, teenagers or?
So my oldest is 17 and my middle child, she's 11, and my youngest, he is 9.
Okay.
Um, so my husband is going to stay with the kids. And I I guess as the conversation goes along, I could tell you a little bit more how it came to making the decision to get on the trail and do that.
Yeah, no, that was gonna be my next question was like, is it just the kids? But okay, you mentioned that you're married,
Hmm.
which is awesome. But it's another
Yeah.
element to this hike, right? Because he's not gonna be
Hmm.
hiking with you. He's staying back, taking care of the kids. Um,
Yep.
I mean, I guess we can get into that. I mean, you want to talk about how uh, maybe we don't have to get right there yet, but let's just talk about where the initial inspiration for doing this trail came from.
So actually, my husband, when we were living in San Diego, when our daughter, when she was about, I think, a year old, he had found a video on YouTube, a documentary about someone going on the trail and their journey, and they told their story, and he was fascinated by it. And at the time, like, I didn't think anything of it. And we only at the time did day hikes. There's plenty of really beautiful spots to hike in San Diego, and every weekend it seemed like we were out there, hiking everything. So, for that time, that was good for me. Fast forward to us moving to Virginia, and it didn't actually, I wasn't inspired to do it until about a year ago. He had completed the Virginia Triple Crown, and he's like, "Hey, I want to take you out here, and I want you to experience this too." So I'd never done any overnight, like, hiking and camping like that until that time. So it was kind of a shock because, it seems simple, but it's not, in the sense that it's very physically and mentally exhausting, especially when you're being challenged in ways that you've never been challenged before. So I did that, and it's like I immediately connected with the physical suffering aspect of it. It's like I needed that physical challenge to get mental clarity, if that makes sense. Like, I didn't think about anything else other than really what I was doing, and sometimes it was just, or things would pop up in my mind, and we'd talk about it along the way, and it was just kind of a therapeutic in a way.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. It's kind of the meditation of suffering, really. I mean, because
Yes.
it's the only thing that's preoccupying your mind is, oh my gosh, I'm hiking uphill. All right, I see the top. I'm almost there. Am I almost there? Nope. Okay, got to keep walking. Put one in front of the other. It's like this whole inner monologue. But
Yeah.
eventually, right? Like the more you hike, the more that monologue kind of turns off, and you just go on auto hike. And
Yeah.
yeah. And so you were coming from, this was San Diego,
Yes, so I was
Coronado.
stationed, not quite. I worked in Coronado for a bit,
Okay.
but we didn't live in Coronado. It's it's way too expensive to live there. I wish I could, but, no, I did work there though, and, he worked in Coronado as well. But, uh sorry, I lost track of my thought
No,
process
no, you're fine. You're
there.
cool. You're fine. You're just fine.
Yeah, so we were stationed there for 7 years, and then he was like, "Hey, I wanna get stationed on the East Coast." And at the time, we were dual military because he's still in the Navy, and, so I said, "Alright, well, let's go." And I've never lived in Virginia and had never been here, but, um, I was like, "Yeah, I'm very adaptable," and, I'm not materialistic in a way that I get tied to material things and then like, "Oh, no, our daughter was born here, I can't leave here," type of thing. I was just like, "Yep, let's go. Whatever, will make you happy." It's like a new adventure for me.
Seems like one of the many benefits of being military is that you're used to adapting, overcoming, improvising on the fly, and picking up
Mhm.
and leaving isn't something that is going to bother you too much. But coming
Right.
from San Diego over there, and then coming over to the East Coast, it's hilarious. I love watching the people from Colorado or, Oregon, California. They
Yeah.
they're so used to the Rockies and there's big mountains out west, and they come over here and like, 5,000, 6,000 foot mountains, no problemo. And and then they
Yeah.
just kick your butt. Is that
Yeah.
is that what happened?
Um, yes and no. I think well, when we first moved here, I definitely went through a bit of, depression from the forever nice weather in San Diego.
Mhm,
They don't have the same type of bugs. I didn't have allergies when I lived there, and when I moved here, I did. So it was just a lot of like physical changes with me, and scenery changes. Yeah, and especially like the hiking. Like here, where I live now, we have to drive about 3 hours to get good hiking up in the mountains, but there, it's like a 20 to 30-minute drive, you know, and, we could do it every day and no big deal.
yeah. So your husband kind of gets you into this, or at least the idea of it.
Mhm.
Where did things really start to turn where you actually considered doing this?
Well, so I've struggled with depression pretty much my entire life, and I've always, used exercise and physical activity to help me deal with that and manage it. But I've definitely gone through changes in my life at times where I needed something a little more than just that. So, like traditional therapy, which is just for my personality, I find not as helpful. For me, like what I realized in hiking is it's just so therapeutic and just how I physically feel just being in awe of where I'm at, and just kind of immersing myself and just being so grateful, like even for the pain of how I feel.
Mhm.
So that's really where I think he saw in me how much of an impact it was, I think, before I did. And so I'm gonna rewind back to, let's see, June of last year. I was a law enforcement officer here in my local town now, for about 4 years, and I was so stressed, and it was just go, 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 go. It felt like my identity became my work, not by choice, but it forcefully became my work because everything I had to do, whether it be court or duty or whatever, is like I never really had a lot of me time. And so he was like, "Hey, why don't you, quit your job, become a stay-at-home mom?" It helped support his career a little bit more. And then um it's weird. It's like the stars aligned because he travels a lot for his work, and we would find little time, 2 or 3 days here and there to go hiking, and that's kinda where he saw, like, a shift in me and my personality and being out on the trail and, um, hiking and the kind of effect that that had on me, that where he was like, "Let's pull you out of, your current situation, your job that's stressing you out and where you can never seem to relax and you're always, like, up here, and let's give you some time to go get out on the trail. And um, so he's traveled for about 5, 6 months, and then he's like, "Hey, I have a 5 month window where I'm not going to be traveling," and he has some flexibility with his job. And he was like, "Why don't you go hike the Appalachian Trail?" And I was like, "Are you sure? Like, are you sure we can make that work?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'll figure it out." His mom lives here, and she's like, "Yeah, I'm totally on board, whatever y'all need help with." So it was like the timing was right for me now, just, being a stay-at-home mom. And I say just, it's a very important job, but going from having a career and doing both at the same time and juggling it, to now just that being my main focus, to him being like, "Hey, I got it now. Now you go, because I can see how much this is going to help you."
Yeah, no, that's completely understandable. I have a question. This is a little off topic, but it's on topic at least for relative to what you've experienced in your life. And I've
Okay.
always kind of wanted to ask this question because there's a lot of things thrown out there in the media cycle and online and on the news about law enforcement. Now, there's a parallel with the military in some aspects, but when you're in the military, you go on rotation and
Mhm.
there's an off tempo. Um, is that, and I've always, and I don't know, I don't have obviously any firsthand experience, but I would think, right? Because I mean, we're seeing in the news guys freaking out over acorns, and like obviously there's something going on there
Yeah.
because of all the stress that these guys they're constantly immersed in these environments out in the streets or
Mhm.
wherever they are. Is that something that you think would help law enforcement officers with having some kind of off tempo rotation, something like that? Time
Oh,
off?
yeah. Absolutely. Like, you get paid time off, but you only get so much. Um, and it also everything is different from one department to the other. So what our department does, the department I worked for, isn't necessarily going to be the same as, the next city or town over. Um, yes, I think absolutely. If any of the and I know, because there's a shortage of officers. There's no doubt about that. There's definitely, more people in need, and there's more crime happening than there are officers available to take care of all those issues. So, in some aspect, yeah, I think it should be mandatory. However, it probably won't be because of the demand that there is for needing officers 24/7. And it's really sad. I know there's mental health in that field is should be at number one priority and of concern, but it's almost like there's such an overwhelming amount of crime and just the go, 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 that it's like you can't pause and think about that. You just try to do the best you can and hope you're giving your officers what they need, which usually you can't please everybody, but I think the basic, standard of having psychologists available, and somebody saying, "Hey, I need time off and I'm struggling mentally," without feeling like they're gonna be reprimanded by asking for that. I think that should be normalized, but it's, it's really gonna depend on the department. But yeah, I really think that it would definitely benefit all the officers that are still out there.
Well said. Thank you for sharing your perspective on that. That's great. I mean, like, to be able to have someone on your team that can read the temperature of where you're at in life, I think is going to
Mm,
be a very valuable resource on trail. Because one, you've got your own kind of emotional awareness and intelligence, but you've got someone who can also get a good read on you and offer encouragement, support, and however whatever you need in that moment.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. I'm curious what your mindset is going into this hike. How are you
Mm.
approaching it? Are you going in wanting to complete the whole trail very determined? Are you wanting to just have a good time, a fun adventure? What's your mindset going in?
So that's an interesting question because I mean, I've tried to watch every single documentary, every YouTube video I can find on it, and
Good luck.
it's I know there's so many, and I love them all because I take, little pieces of like, "Ooh, I don't wanna do that. I don't wanna be like that. I don't wanna have that." Or like, "Ooh, that's really smart. I'm gonna note that in my, in the back of my mind and keep that fresh so I can apply that to when I'm out there." But, no, I think my mindset is I'm trying not to have any expectation, especially, like, watching other videos, you kind of it's easy to like, when you said people romanticize in their videos with their editing, how amazing it is, and sometimes they don't really show how difficult it can actually be. Um, I mean, I've done some pretty challenging things in my life, like, that require, mental fortitude to go into doing it, so I'm trying not to have an expectation and be realistic, like, this is not gonna be an easy journey, but just because it's not easy, that doesn't mean I'm not gonna stop unless I'm physically not capable of continuing, and if it's like a medical thing. But yeah, my goal is to finish. I've promised my daughter, well, I try to promise her, but also tell her, "Hey, like, hey, be realistic. I may not be back home, before your birthday, but I'm gonna try. It is like as long as I physically can." But yeah, I feel like I'm pretty stubborn person when it comes to wanting to complete a goal, and it would have to be a medical reason to take me off the trail and not be able to complete it. So yeah, and I'm trying to figure out how to mentally, prepare myself with being realistic and not looking at the entire journey from the start to finish, like, maybe break it up because I love but I also hate running, and so in my mind, I, like, trick my mind, and I'm like, "Okay, I'm gonna do 6 miles today," but if I break it up into, 2-mile increments, it's really only okay, so I've got 3, rounds I gotta go because that's 2 miles each, and then that's 6, so it's like I'm gonna try to mentally, do that with myself, breaking down the miles as I go and maybe try to go like 100 miles here, 100 miles there, however it ends up working. And try not to think too much about it also, which is very difficult for me because I think and I overthink about everything. So that's kind of how I'm trying to tackle it.
Yeah. Do you have a timeline? Are you trying to finish in a certain amount of time specifically, or?
By August 22nd. That's what I'm hoping to finish by. So I
Gotcha.
guess
What's the 22nd?
my daughter's birthday.
Oh, nice. There you
Yeah,
go.
so I'm like, I wanna try to finish, I've talked to my husband, I'm like, "How cool would it be if you guys drove up and summited Mount Katahdin with me?" And I think that'd be a really great experience for the kids and, for us to do together and kinda show them, like, when you start something, you finish it, and then y'all can finish it together with me.
Yeah.
So, a lot of lessons being learned for me and the kids, but I don't wanna get too ahead of myself. I mean, that's how I imagine it in my mind happening, but I also like, okay, there's a lot of work that's gotta happen before I get to that.
Yeah. Well,
So,
it's a good thing to have in front of you and to keep chasing after. I mean,
yeah,
if you finish the trail for the rest of your life, but also for the rest of their life, they could say, "Oh yeah, my mom hiked the Appalachian Trail," and that's such a cool
yeah,
thing, because
yeah,
yeah, the statistics say like most people that every room that you're in with other people, every store, wherever you're at, you're probably going to be the only person there that has done this. So I think it's an awesome thing.
yeah.
What's your baseline in terms of overall fitness and kind of capabilities going into this?
Uh,
do you feel confident hiking up mountains?
yeah, yeah, I do. I I've always been pretty athletic. Recently, I've gained a little bit of weight through like depression after quitting my job and going through kind of a big life transition. So that was kind of tough for me, as a female because I felt like I was pretty in shape when I was a cop, not just because I needed to be, but just for my own personal standard. But that kind of, fell off whenever I quit and fell into like this little deep depression of, okay, this is this is my life now, and didn't keep up with my fitness too much. But I mean, I I've got back in the gym, I've been working out, I've been hiking, as much as I can. My husband and I go up to, the Virginia Triple Crown, and we've hiked that a few times,
Nice.
and so I have a pretty good grasp on my gear too, of, like, what's gonna work, what's not gonna work, and, he's teaching me all kinds of stuff that I'm sure I'll I'll be an expert on whenever I get done.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's funny, we were talking about my kids, they actually wanna hike the Appalachian Trail when my husband retires in 2026, so we might all be doing it again in that time too.
Oh,
I know
wow.
that's, like, in the future, but yeah, they wanna do it already.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, so
Yeah, that second I mean, you could do this trail 10 different times, and honestly, it ranges so much, like, the weather's so inconsistent on this coast here, and
oh, yeah.
it can be a different hike every single time. You'll see
Mhm.
things one time that you won't see the other, so by all means, twice 2 is better than 1. Um, we gotta get to 1 first.
Yeah, I know.
Um
Try not to get too ahead here.
Yeah. So and you've mentioned, how you've been dealing with depression. That's been a big thing for you in your life.
Mhm,
Have you kind of had a more holistic approach? Is what it sounds like as far as how you're helping yourself kind of cope with that. You're getting in the gym, you're preparing for this hike, you're doing the hike itself, which I'm sure you've kind of told me you see as like a walking meditation sort of. So has that
mhm.
kind of been your approach to just dealing with it?
Yeah, I mean, I have a therapist and I have a psychologist and um I don't take any medication or anything for depression. I have before in the past and didn't have a really good response with that. And so I feel like hiking in a way is non-traditional therapy. And I
Hmm,
don't know if you agree with that or not, but
I do.
um it's I've just really responded well to it. And I really see the benefit in myself doing it, and I think everybody should, if so many people suffer with it and don't even realize it, just getting your body moving and just staying in motion really helps pull you out of, depression moments and those feelings that kind of want to bury you down. And I'm very much an introvert, to where I don't like talking about my issues too much. So, or like really, I don't want to put that burden on somebody else. So I would just rather deal with it myself, which I've had to learn over time. That's not the best way. Um, but hiking in a way still allows me to deal with that while also in an introverted way, but also, kind of meeting other people that are out there for the same reasons and doing in the same type of environment and situation and going through the same exact things.
Community.
So, yes, community.
Yeah.
It's just like, like if you go to AA and you have support from people who know exactly what you're going through and what you're doing, um, it's yeah, to me, it feels like the same kind of thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
community. So,
No, and it's perfect. And I've thought about this a lot because while I admit it was a form of therapy for me, when you were I was 4 years younger on my first hike when I was that young with no responsibility, kind of pretty much homeless at that point, very
Yeah.
displaced. Um, it can be a good thing, but there's also a duality to it as well because now you've experienced this part of life, and so now you have to go back to regular life,
Mhm.
and that's very challenging trying to transition back into that. But I kind of see, folks in your boat. You're established, right? Whatever that means. But you've got a family, right? You've got a
Mhm.
husband to come back to, you've got children. I think that's very beneficial because, there's no question of like, all right, what am I going back to? You have that. But also
Yeah.
you can integrate everything that you're experiencing and learning out there and just bring it back home with you. And I think that's special.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. Yeah.
so how are you? So you've described you're more of an introvert. How do you think you're going to approach this trail socially? There's a lot of, and I'm sorry for talking too much, but I
Oh,
see a
no.
lot of I
Okay.
see a lot of things on you. If you never step foot on trail, you would just think that the trail is just one massive tramley. And I don't,
Yeah.
that word kind of bothers me. I don't know. I'm weird about that, but
Yeah.
how are you gonna approach that socially with other people?
Um, I think well, I've seen a lot of the hike your own hike. Um, I do want to make connections with people, but I still want to maintain that idea of I'm hiking my own hike. So I'm still doing what I need to do on trail that's gonna benefit me the best, while also trying to, build relationships and get to know people and, um, learn from others on the trail as well, because I think that's a huge part of it too. But the whole tramway thing, I'm kind of right there with you. I think some people naturally, because we as humans in general um, need to have that feeling of like belonging and being, and we feel safer with other people, and sometimes that it is used in a way to kind of distract us from being with ourselves and being alone with our mind and our thoughts and kind of working through that, which I don't want to get distracted by being around too many people and still get the benefit of being alone and figuring things out on my own, but while still also trying to build relationships as well, which is kind of why I created a whole YouTube thing like, "Hey, follow this and document," look back on later like, "Oh, this is really cool I did this because I feel like it's gonna happen so fast, it's gonna get blurry," but also, like, film the conversations I have with people and, like, take photos with people to, like, kind of remember them in that moment in time right there, of just kind of being in that moment, and, I don't know. Because I'm terrible about maintaining relationships, unless you're, like, directly in my life every single day, or, like, I have a few close friends, and that works for me, but I don't know that if I do meet anybody on the trail, it'll turn into, like, "That's my BFF," or, like, "I'm gonna go hike with them, next month," or whatever, like, somebody I make future plans with.
Yeah.
Did
Before I
I
forget.
answer that?
No, you did,
I feel like
absolutely.
I went on a tangent there for a minute.
No, 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 I'm here for it. This is, I tell people this is like the not not that I'm in any stratosphere, but this is like the Joe Rogan of the trail, so we can talk about anything. Um, Before I forget, plug your channel, hopefully whoever's listening to this can follow all 100
Oh,
of them.
okay. YouTube is Holly Hikes, and, I just started an IG, Holly W Hikes, so
Okay, awesome.
yeah,
So they'll go there, follow your
yeah.
hike. Do you plan on posting a lot, or is you kinda just gonna get to it when you get to it?
I'm just gonna get to it when I get to it. Honestly, I don't wanna have any time constraint or commitment to a weekly or a daily thing, because I don't I my primary focus is the trail, but I
Mhm.
also wanna document it in a way where I can have, like, a time capsule somewhere online that I can go back on and be like, "Whoa, I forgot about that. That's pretty cool. I have that there, and I can rewatch it and relive it," type of thing.
Yeah. That'll be cool.
and just share it with the world, because why not?
Yeah, why not?
That's kind of
Put Post it or it didn't happen.
I know, right? Exactly. People are
Um,
like, "No way, you never did that."
yeah. So, what are your, like I kind of talked about, you're taking your experience back to your family once you're through. What are some things that you're wanting to kind of get from this experience overall? What would you say would be um, the the big things?
Um,
I know we
ooh,
talked a little bit about it prior, right? Like
yeah.
walking meditation,
Yeah, yeah,
its
yeah.
benefits for your health, your mind, body,
Mhm.
spirit. Is there anything else?
Um, I don't know, maybe just proving to myself that I can do hard things even when I think I can't. Because I think we all at times have that little voice in our head that are like, "Are you sure? You really can't do that. Like, why even try do that?" It's like, "No, no, no. I need to put my mind to it and drown out that little roommate in my mind that says I can't and just do hard things
Heck
even when
yeah.
I think I can't and be an example to my kids because I'm very big on don't just talk about it. Your actions also show you who you are, not just what you say. And if I could show my kids that I can do hard things, then that's also teaching them that they can too. So I think that's what I want to take away, if anything, the most for that.
Right on. Well, there's the statistics say that 25% of people who start
I have
finish the
seen
trail.
that.
But you know what? I think that number's lower. I think there's
Yeah.
a lot of fibbing on trail, especially people who get to the end. There's a lot of stories. I don't know how you got here, but you got here. That kind of deal.
Yeah.
I think the number's lower. I think the attrition rate is high. And so, like you said, like there's a lot of people who come out with the intention or they say they want to do it,
Mhm.
but like actually doing it, I think that it's another good thing to chase.
Mhm.
Because you're trying to model for your family, and that's awesome, and for yourself. Um,
Mhm.
so I'm doing this thing right, barring any kind of injury. I'm sure I'll see you up this way. We talked
Yeah.
about it before. Once you get up to the halfway point or near that point, we'll come and talk in person. And
Yeah.
um, and so what I'm going to do when we meet then is I'm going to show you a clip of yourself now, and you're going to be talking to your future self. So right now you're talking to your future self. We're sitting
Oh, I
down. We're
love
in
that.
Harpers Ferry, Front Royal, wherever we're going to be. If you had to tell your future self one thing, what would you say?
Ooh, just one thing?
Or a multiple, or
That's gonna
whatever.
be hard. Okay, ah, if I had to tell my future self, um, it's gonna sound so cliche because I feel like I've heard so many people say it before, but, um, don't quit on a bad day. Be in that moment, go through whatever you're feeling, and get to the next day. Just keep moving forward.
It's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. That's how you get there. Seems like you've got the attitude, the mindset. You're it seems like you're taking a very nearsighted approach, which,
Mhm.
you talked about it earlier. It's like, how do I get from, 1 mile to the other, one shelter to the other, the next
Mhm.
shelter. Um,
Yeah.
so I am definitely looking forward to talking with you then and following along. And yeah,
I'm
it's
excited
crunch time
too.
here. It's coming up, right?
I
So
know, I know.
what are you feeling at this point right now? About a month, 3 weeks out.
It's kind of a range of emotions. Like I get really, really excited and then I'm like, "Ooh, I'm really nervous." And I've been talking to my kids more and more and they have their moments where they're like, "Oh, we don't want you to leave," but we're like, "I'm so excited for you and kind of jealous that I can't go with you." Type of thing. But yeah, it's like a roller coaster of emotions going up to it. And it's like I'm very visual like I'm a mentally visual person, so I'm constantly like replaying in my mind like what that day is going to look like and how I'm going to feel having to say goodbye to them, and I know it's just going to be super emotional, but it's going to be amazing at the same time. And it's going to be all of the emotions in one. I
Yeah.
feel like, I can't imagine it not being like that. And my son's like, I don't want you to leave for 5 months. And I'm like, well, you can come on the trail and see me.
Mm.
Just tell dad to bring you out there. And he's like, oh, yeah. But I'm sure they will. I feel like that honestly might even be actually harder because if I'm in the middle of it and they come see me, the temptation to be like, oh, let me just go back with you because I
Mhm.
miss you guys so much. But it's like I still have this realization like, no, no, no. 5 months is 5 months. That's gonna go by so fast. It may not feel like it in the moment, but in hindsight, you're gonna look back and be like, "Oh, that's nothing," you know? So, I'm always gonna try to keep that in the front of my mind.
Yeah. It feels like a lifetime while you're out there.
Mhm.
You look back on it, it all flew by, but really, this is half the battle, the stage you're in right now, just getting to that trailhead. Um,
Yeah, I feel like this is probably gonna be a little bit mentally more challenging. And I say that with no experience of long, through hiking anything in my life, but I think the lead up to it, it's very nerve-wracking and I don't know. You feel
yep,
all the things.
yep,
Like I just kind of want to get there, rip the band-aid off and just get started.
yep. You'll
Like,
feel
all
all
right.
the things, you'll experience all the things, and once you get out there, you're gonna kill it. So
I
I'm
hope
looking
so.
forward to our next conversation, and yeah, so hope we stay in touch.
Yeah, of
If you're
course.
watching this, follow her along on social media, and we'll catch up with her soon enough, I'm sure. So, thank you
Yeah.
for your time, Holly. I appreciate you.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
Sweet. All right, talk
All
soon.
right. All right. Bye.